Fox Sports.
We are Fox Sports. We are Ohio.
First Detroit, then Washington, D.C., and now Citi Field in New York City as the Reds will wrap up a 9-game road trip trying to end it on a winning note. They'll try to take the series against the Mets, the final of 3, and their final game against the Mets in 2018 on Fox Sports Ohio. Hi, hello, and welcome to Citi Field in New York, everyone. Low and the crafty left-hander, Chris Welts and Jim Day and our whole crew. I'm George Grand. Well, last year the Reds had an open audition all season long with starting pitching, 16 of them. This year they'll start their 9th starting pitcher of the year. Robert Stevenson is back.
Well, he's had 20 starts down in the minor leagues to kind of get his act together, and he has done certainly that. He's earned his way back up here by putting on a streak of pitching that is really one of the best in all the minor leagues. 25 games last year. This is his debut here in 2018. He's still only 25 years old, so you're looking at a young man here that has made about 1,000 innings of professional baseball, 120 or so at the big league level, everything else at the minor leagues, but his last 7 starts at Louisville, very impressive.
Overall, he's had 20 great starts in a great year, but the last 7, Chris, they've been impeccable.
Well, you know, he's still throwing a lot of breaking pitches. He's still walking a few batters, but he's getting a lot of strikeouts too. The split finger fastball and the curveball slash slider, whatever you want to call it. It's got a hard breaking pitch. Those are the 2 go-to pitches for Stevenson, so keep an eye on those today.
You said wow after you saw Max Scherzer in Washington, D.C., and right at the same level this year in the National League as Jacob deGrom. He could be the Cy Young Award winner.
Actually, he's above Max Scherzer. He's above just about everybody except Chris Sale as far as all the, the numbers you're talking about. He does have the best earned run average, but if you start going to FIP and XFIP, those things that the analysts go after when they evaluate pitchers, they realize that this guy and Chris Sale have separated themselves from just about everybody else in baseball, and he is just awfully tough to score on.
Well, the numbers will tell you one story. The eye test tells you the same story. He's been dominant. He's been outstanding. His hair a little bit shorter than it was in that picture, but boy, he has been big time for the Mets. Coming up, Stevenson against deGrom. And coming up next, Jim Day will be by with a former Met returns home and greets his former teammates with a big fly last night.
Tri-State Chevy dealer. By Skyline Chili, feeling good, it's Skyline time. And by GMC. Back in the Big Apple, a homecoming of sorts for Dilson Herrera. He was the player that came over in that Jay Bruce trade a few years back, and he's had to work his way back from injury back to the big leagues, and right now riding a high. Let's take you back first to July 23rd, one of the biggest hits of his young major league career. Reds came off the mat, 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth to beat the Cardinals, a walk-off hit, but last night a home run against his former club. When I talked to him after the game, he had a big old smile. And not vindictive, but hey, when a club trades you away and you come back and hit a home run against them, it's extra special. And the Reds have been special as far as pinch hits go. Our IGS bringing the energy. 5 home runs, tied for the most in Major League Baseball as far as pinch hits go. Second most RBIs to the Dodgers, and Herrera, Lorenzen, both with 2 home runs. Winker with 1, and RBI totals Winker, Lorenzen, Herrera with 5. So they've been good off the bench, and they'll need that and more against Jacob deGrom, one of the best pitchers in the game. It's the finale of a road trip, and it's next on Fox Sports Ohio.
And Mickey Callaway shaking hands as they'll meet for the final time. Riggleman, the interim manager with the Reds. Callaway in his first year of a 3-year contract with the Mets. And there is Jacob deGrom on his way out to the mound, where he takes the lowest earned run average in all of baseball out along with him, ready to face the Reds today. Our Elk and Elk storylines presented by Elk and Elk, serious lawyers for serious injuries. The big 3. The Mets scored 3 runs in the first inning in Game 1 on Monday night and won 6-4. Last night, the Reds scored 3 runs in the first inning and won 6-1. So who will strike first, and who will win this clincher of the 3-game series? The Reds won 2 out of 3 last year against the Mets during a period of time where they've struggled. And Chris, when you look at it, the Reds finally got some offense. I mean, they've had some decent pitching on this road trip, but the offense finally came alive last night.
They figured, George, but you know, when you get sandwiched in between Noah Syndergaard and Jacob deGrom, you better get some business done with that starter in the second game, and that's what they were able to do last night. They chased the starter after a third of an inning because of the rain, partly, and also because they were hitting the ball hard off him. It became a bullpen game for the Mets, and they took advantage of it and rode the nice performance by Sal Romano to a win, and it would be nice to pick up this one on a getaway day.
Well, the last time DeGrom pitched against the Reds. He pitched against Sal Romano, and he had a no decision, 6 good innings, and a 10-5 victory by the Reds. Romano was the starting pitcher in that one. Here's your Reds starting lineup for Jim Riggleman. Jose Peraza struggled on the road trip at 137. Will lead it off. Philip Irvin, who had 3 runs batted in his second homer of the year last night, will bat second. Scooter, 3 more hits last evening, bats third. Votto out of the lineup again, still nursing that gimpy knee after being hit by a pitch in Washington. Eugenio Suarez hits in the cleanup spot. Mason Williams back and right. Kurt Casale will get the start behind the plate. Brandon Dixon for Votto at first. Stevenson hits in the 8th spot, and Billy Hamilton will bat in the 9th position. And here is a potential Cy Young Award winner and very clearly one of the best pitchers in all of baseball, Jacob DeGrom.
I think a lot of people are surprised by that. If you go back to 2010 when he was drafted out of Stetson University down in DeLand, Florida, 9th round pick. So a lot of other teams had an opportunity to scout and take a look at DeGrom. He didn't make the major leagues until he was 26, but when he did, oh boy. Rookie of the year the first year, made it the All-Star team the second year, and basically has never looked back.
Here's Peraza with the third baseman Jose Bautista in a step in front of the bag to guard against a possible bunt. Peraza, the best bunter among Reds regulars, and he is tied with Bailey for the lead in sacrifice bunts. He fouls this one off, and he's in an 0-2 hold, and that's the way Jacob DeGrom operates. He gets ahead early and then puts you away with a variety of pitches, all of which are the plus variety. 6 homers, 39 knocked in for Peraza with that overall 282 average. That's up high for a ball, says the home plate umpire Lance Barksdale. Will Little's down at first. Kerwin Danley, the second base umpire, and Ben May, last night's home plate umpires, down at third. Here's the 1-2. Last night, the game started with cloudy skies, and 14 pitches into the game, we had a rain delay of an hour and 40 minutes. The Reds got 3 runs in the first. That got them off and rolling. Today, skies are clearer, but they expect some thunderstorms later in the day. Boy, it was torrential rain last night. Here's a dribbler, Bautista over. Quick flip to first to Flores, and there's one away. Check your forward defensive alignment for the Mets, who have struggled defensively this year. Michael Conforto in left. Austin Jackson acquired just this past month, solid in center field defensively. Brandon Nimmo is over in right. All 3 have played center field this year. Bautista, who played right last night, the former Silver Sluggers at third. Rosario, Jeff McNeil has been great since coming up from AAA, and the all-everywhere player Wilmer Flores gets another start at first. With Devin Mesoraco, the former Red, behind the plate. Good to see Mesoraco, Chris, and on Monday night, game 1 of the series, he was coming over and reacquainting himself with the whole Reds crew.
He's an easy guy to root for. Always just, you know, a hard worker, kind of a blue collar type baseball player, and just beset by injuries that they had no control over, and just never really reached the potential the Reds thought that they had in him when they drafted him first pick out of Puxtawney, Pennsylvania, way back when.
Still makes his home there. His son celebrated his first birthday on Monday. Mom and Dad were here, and family was here. They left, and the Mets will go on a road trip, so you probably won't see them for a couple of weeks. Here's Irvin 0-2, and that's down and away. Mesoraco, last year of his contract, he was traded, of course, for Matt Harvey and the flip-flop of 2 guys who would be free agents at the end of the year, and he's hoping to latch on, if not with the Mets, with someone for 2019. There's the 1-2. Mesoraco sets up down and away. Irvin, what a night last night, Chris. He came up with 2 fine plays at the warning track defensively. Sacrifice fly for 1 run batted in, and then a bullet shot to left for a 2-run home run. 3 of the Reds' runs. Another look at home run number 2 of the season for Phillip.
He's got a quick bat, and he jumped all over a high pitch in the zone right here and just turned it right around. Not a lot of extra zip on that fastball. And a zipper right back up the middle. How about that?
He continues to hit well. His average coming in 309, and there's a base hit. 1 out, 1 on for the Reds, and here comes Scooter.
Yeah, this is normally the spot that we're in right now with Scooter Gennett coming to the plate. Normally where Joey Votto occupies, number 3 in the batting order. And I got to figure this is killing Votto not to be able to face, you know, the best that the Mets have to offer. He's the kind of guy that just has a tendency to be able to rise to the occasion when he faces, you know, the ace of the other team. In this case, the ace of the league.
1 out, 1 on for Scooter, who had 3 hits last night, including a hard hit ground ball right through the teeth of this shift that they put on him again. Roughly a little over 1/4 of his hits have gone right in that spot between the shortstop and second baseman. And he beat the shift the hard way right through it last night. Strike 1, and DeGrom has been ahead of every hitter so far here in the first. That's what you expect from him. Irvin, big lead. He's going. Pitch inside, and a swing and a miss. Did Mesoraco got the worst of that? It's a foul ball, and it looked like got him right in the gut.
Well, he was jumping up in anticipation of being able to throw the ball to second base. Comes out of his crouch a little bit and looked like it just
Boy, it got
went off
Scooter
the
on
bat,
the
and
hip.
they got everybody.
Foul tip hit Scooter in the left hip and then hit Mesoraco right in the gut. We'll try it again. 0-2 for the Reds second baseman, who's second on the team with 68 runs batted in this lineup. Suarez with 87 RBI right behind him on deck. That's where he'll pitch, Chris, 96 to 98, and it's easy gas, isn't it?
Well, you know what? It's easy gas, George, because it's explosive and he has a nice long stride. So his extension towards home plate is better than most pitchers. You know, the radar gun only tells part of the story. That's the speed of the pitch coming out of your hand. What you really should be more concerned with is how much time does a hitter have to make his decision. And when you get a pitcher that's a couple of inches closer to home plate with his fastball release than other pitchers, those are the ones that are called sneaky fast, and DeGrom's in that mold.
1-2, Irvin not going. Dribble down the third baseline, past the bag. It'll go into the corner. Phillip around second, going to third. The throw will come into second. Smart move by Scooter, who wanted to go to second, but good play by Conforto to know he doesn't have a chance for the runner at third. He keeps the runner at first. Double play still in order, but the Reds have first and third.
Well, recently DeGrom has thrown that changeup an awful lot, something like 35% of the time. So you had to figure that Gennett is figuring sometime in this at bat I'm getting a changeup. And he just tried to flail at it, get the bat on the ball, got a little break right there by keeping it fair down the line. And the Reds here in the first inning have a chance to score. What an emotional lift that would be if you could get a run in right here.
For their biggest RBI guy and one of the best offensive players in the league, Eugenio Suarez, in at 303, 26 homers, 87 knocked in. He had a base hit that plated 2 last evening. Fouled at the plate, and Mesoraco got nailed on that one. And one of those days, Chris, I mean, you've been there. There's some days where the ball just finds you. I mean, how many times does Johnny Bench talk about how many foul tips, how many bounces, how many hard hits he took night after night, day after day?
He probably feels like he's been out there for 4 or 5 innings already. Yeah. He's got 1 out in the first under his belt, and he's been nailed twice.
That's what marvels you about guys like Buster Posey, who still end up with 140, 145 games catching. It's a lost art, yes, and most catchers these days are around 100 to 110 games. No balls, 1 strike. Short lead for Scooter, first and third for the Reds. Slap foul the other way. And for the 4th straight batter in the inning, DeGrom is 0-2. Pretty good numbers. I mean, you look at his swing, yes, but look at those numbers. They're impressive. Up and away for a ball, 1-2. Most of the Reds have struggled on this road trip. Eugenio has hit safely in all 8 games of the trip so far. That's the longest active streak on the Reds ball club. His last double is 97th as he approaches 100 for his career. A nasty pitch, and there's a swing and a miss, and strikeout number 1 for Jacob deGrom, number 174 on the season. That's in only 146 innings pitched.
Kind of thing that separates the really great pitchers from the also-rans is the ability to get a strikeout when you need it. Not necessarily rack up 14 in a game in which you win 14-0, but with a runner at third base, less than 2 outs, needs a K right there against the Reds' best hitter in the lineup, and he gets it.
Here's Mason Williams in at 297, 2 away, still first and third for the Reds. Reds cashed in last night early to give them an early cushion, trying to do it again here in the first today. Breaking ball clips the inside corner at the knees for strike 1. Interesting. Great. I hope you had a chance to watch our pregame show, and before the game, Jim Day talking to Sal Romano, who pitched so brilliantly last night. And Romano was looking forward to today. Look at him out there. He said, you know, last time I faced deGrom, we were both pitching. He said, I can watch him today. And that's the kind of thought process the young man goes through. Well, he's watching one of the best out there on the mound.
Yeah, but the day after you pitch a really fine ball game, especially if you're able to do it in front of your family and friends, that day is the best day of the week.
Yeah. And best day in a long time is some 200 of his family and friends were here last night. Mom and Dad, some of the families still here today. 1-1. There goes the runner. Here comes the throw. It'll be. They'll try to keep him in a run down, but he can't stay there long enough. Scooter tried to backtrack, get in a run down long enough for Irvin to score. Couldn't do it. So the Reds first and third lose an opportunity. To the bottom of 1 we go. AAA with an 11-6 record. He's ready to go to work. The numbers for him, Chris, been great all year, but even better for the last month.
Well, he's really put it together, George. You know, when he was in spring training, he was getting knocked around. He had some very bad outings there where he couldn't find the plate. And the same thing happened to him when he went down to AAA early on. And they realized it was going to take some effort on his part to figure out a way to be able to repeat his delivery. And hopefully he has gotten to that point. Numbers certainly indicate that.
There's Ahmed Rosario, the young shortstop for the Mets, to lead it off at 230, 4 homers and 28 knocked in. Reds have handled him pretty well in the series thus far, keeping him off the bases. He's got stolen base potential and is Stolen 10 of his last 11. One of the keys, keep him off the bases for this Mets team that doesn't run a lot except for this guy at the top of the lineup. 1 ball, 1 strike from Robert. Off the end of the bat. Can Stevenson get there in time? He will. And there's 1 away. Take a look at the rest of Mickey Callaway's batting order for this Mets team. In their career, the Reds are .320 and .286 against New York. Rosario leads it off. Jeff McNeil up from AAA. Vegas has been outstanding offensively. Wilmer Flores, usually second, third, or short, playing first. Michael Conforto in left. Batista at third gets the start there. Brandon Nimmo, the right fielder. Austin Jackson in center. Mesoraco, and then Jacob deGrom will hit in the number 9 position. Here's McNeil in at an even .333. 2 homers and 4 knocked in for him. Going into last night's game, he was 8 of his last 12, and the Reds handled him 0 for 3 until he was hit by a pitch in the 8th inning. Solid offensive contributor throughout the minor leagues at AA and AAA. The question is, how much will he hit, and can he play second base well enough to be the second baseman of the future on this ball club? Reds overshift to the right side against him. Peraza 2 steps to the right field side of second. 1 ball, 1 strike. You watch some pitchers evolve over their career, Chris, especially young pitchers, and they'll change their mechanics a lot. Tyler Mahle's one who looks the same as he did the first time we saw him, and Stevenson the same way too. He has not tinkered with his mechanics very much.
Well, except the fact that he's pitching, as you can tell, completely out of the stretch position. So when he first came, and I watched him very closely, George, when he was first signed, his first minor league spring training, and you could see why he was throwing 100 miles an hour, but his delivery was basically all over the place. It was designed to throw hard, and that's what he did, but he really didn't have a lot of command. And they're just trying to get him to a point where he can repeat, throw strikes. With defense like that, no problem. Throw the ball over the plate.
Perfect defensive positioning. Peraza throws him out. Take a look at his original motion and the difference between that and today after the tutelage of Jeff Facero down at AAA.
Well, that is even a whole lot better than it used to be. I mean, a ton better. It was one of the worst I'd ever seen, actually, out of a high school kid. And obviously the scouts saw the arm strength and not necessarily the ability to repeat. But he's got a very fine breaking pitch now, a hard curveball. There it is. And he's got a split finger fastball that he throws as his real put away pitch. So when he gets ahead in the count, he's going to go almost exclusively to that off speed stuff.
2 away. Here's Flores at 275, 10 homers, 38 knocked in. You know, Chris, you and I have known Jeff Facero for a long time. I mean, you pitched when he pitched. You got to know him as a player, and he was always a great competitor. Boy, he's become a darn good pitching coach.
Well, he has, and the Reds are just chock full of guys that had success in the major leagues, have turned themselves into really good pitching coaches down there. I mean, it is a roster of pitching coaches throughout the minor leagues, and you see Danny Darwin. He was called up from AA earlier this year when Mac Jenkins was let go. But yeah, I'd put these names against anybody out of baseball because they have one great collection of coaches down there.
Hit hard, right field, going back, looking up. Mason Williams will haul it in. So it's a 1-2-3 first. The Reds had to threaten the first, nothing to show for it. Williams back to the bat rack when we return. first. Irvin is on second. He goes off. Now look, he'll look back, see where the ball is. His job right there is to put the brakes on and not get tagged out by the shortstop. Stay in a rundown long enough, Chris, to get the run home. Couldn't do it.
I think that play is the favorite play of every high school baseball coach in America, other than a suicide squeeze. And you don't see it happen very often at the major league level. You know, drastic times require drastic measures, and you know the way that Jacob deGrom is pitching, you know, they're figuring they have a better chance of maybe stealing a run right there than they actually have a guy being able to drive him in.
How many chances you're going to get against deGrom? Not many.
Exactly. But it's a play that they probably haven't practiced a lot either. You know, normally when you see that play practiced in spring training, you're always on the defensive side of that rather than on the offensive side.
And the other part of that, Chris, it's not just practicing in spring training. It's what do you do in the minor leagues? Are you doing it throughout the organization? I mean, Billy Martin did that a lot when he was the Yankee manager, and Riggleman came up in the Cardinal organization where they did that a lot throughout the minor leagues. And you saw Riggleman teaching, talking with Scooter. I mean, his mistake, he went too far, and not only that, you got a speedy shortstop, so you know you can't get your pocket pick once he gets the ball.
Well, the reason that particular play works in high school level and doesn't work very often at all in the major league level is the arm strength of the players. Because you got everybody in the infield who can throw it with authority, you know, 130 feet, which is basically what it is from second base to home.
So Riggleman trying to make something happen. Didn't work that time, but he's got another base runner here in the second. Mason Williams, who was at the plate when that play initiated, walks to lead off the second. That's only the 34th walk of the season in 147 innings for deGrom. Williams got some speed too. The Reds went into this series thinking with runners on they'd try to maximize their opportunity to steal bases. We'll see what Riggleman does with Williams down at first. Kurt Casale, the starting catcher for today. In at 295, couple of homers and 7 knocked in. Short lead for Mason Williams. As you mentioned, Chris, deGrom, a long stride that contributes to part of his power. He will vary his pace at the mound. That's one of the best effects he has to try to cut down the running game. He'll pause every single pitch with a runner on and change his cadence. Runner not going. Breaking ball drops in there. 1 ball, 1 strike.
You know, we don't have a way to measure how long that stride is, but a lot of times what pitching coaches used to say is that, you know, you should stride somewhere in the neighborhood of the height of your body. I got to figure deGrom is longer than that. I know Tim Lincecum, they measured that when he was drafted and he first started coming up, and his stride was 127% of his body height, and that gave him tremendous extension towards home plate. Greg Maddux is a guy that had long stride and great extension towards home plate. So the whole idea is that you throw faster than you're really throwing, or than you appear to be throwing.
deGrom to the stretch. Williams off first. Changeup way out in front.
And the fact that he has that kind of control over his changeup is remarkable.
Strikeout number 2 for deGrom. Another look. And the other part of that, Chris, about 120% with Lincecum was at the high end. Roy Oswalt was the only other pitcher that was anywhere near that, about 115, 118%. At the other end was Aaron Harang, who was less than, he was about 78, 80% of what his stride was. A big guy like him, 6'6", 6'7", his stride was one of the shortest strides you've ever seen.
Well, in order to have a long stride and make it effective, you have to have a fast arm. You can't have your arm lag behind. If you've got a long arm arc, the arm will never catch up with that long stride. Those are the guys that have the shorter stride. So, you know, deGrom has a quick arm, long stride, keeps his head perfectly still.
High fly ball to center. Austin Jackson under it. With one away, he'll gather it in. Last night, big burly right-hander Sal Romano. You'd expect him as a power pitcher to have a long stride. When you watch his foot placement compared to where DeGrom is right now, he's not out of the same mold, is he? Much shorter stride for Romano.
Well, you know, absolutely. He kind of falls into the Aaron Haran category.
Two outs after the fly ball out. And here's Stevenson. First at bat of the year.
And it looks like it.
Looks like that was a wiffle ball.
Some things you can't hide.
You could hear the ball hit the glove, and there came the swing. No balls, 2 strikes. Where was it? DeGrom strikes out 2 in the inning, 3 strikeouts after 2. We're still scoreless. Stevenson back to the mound.
Including in May, bagging the windup entirely.
Yeah, I think the biggest change that I made so far was in early May I started pitching just exclusively out of the stretch, and I think that's been huge for me, just being able to work on just one thing only and simplify everything.
And for Stevenson, at times the pitching coaches worked on him to simplify not only physically but mentally, and it gives him a lot less to think about, and he's had success with it. We'll see in inning number 2.
Hey, JD, it was great yesterday to watch Stevenson come back into the clubhouse. Sal Romano walked in, looked up, saw him, big embrace. That, together again, that whole crew that roomed together in spring training and worked together at AA and AAA. Good to see them back together again, huh?
Yeah, not only roommates, but Sal Romano, the best man in Robert Stevenson's wedding in the offseason.
Always will be a link there, won't there?
Oh, no question. One for life, no matter if they stay on the same team or not going forward.
And of the whole crew, I guess they'd say, they all said Stevenson was probably the neatest guy in the house, right?
He was the nanny, they would say. He was like the mom. He would text them when he would get home and say, hey, you guys didn't take the garbage out.
His wife is happy he's that way. Let's see, you room with Lala, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Who was the nanny?
We didn't have
Neither one in that crew.
Sorry.
Here's Conforto in a 232, 14 homers, 39 knocked in.
I think the garbage got taken out when we moved.
You left it for the next people.
Wonder where that deposit went.
Different game now, huh, Chris? Back in the roommate days.
Well, it was roommates on the road is what you mean, in the hotel rooms. And, of course, now you still see a lot of guys who come up and they're single. They may room together in a house or in a condo, you know, in their hometown. But nowadays on the road, every player gets his own room.
So, and a lot of them have suites, too, and that's in their contract. Like you.
No.
Here's the 3-2. That's up high, ball 4. You know, you talk about roommates. Walk number 1, lead off the second for Stevenson. I never forget one of our old friends, Chris, is Eddie Brinkman, great shortstop from Ohio State, long time, outstanding defensive player. And when he was in Washington, he was the roommate of Frank Howard's. And I mean, they were great friends before they got to the major leagues and when they were in the major leagues. And he said, how stupid was I? I mean, Hondo ate more than 3 people, right? And they'd always split the bill at the end of the road trip. And Hondo would end up, there's a fly ball to right. Mason Williams back, runner goes halfway, 1 away. He said, you know, I'd order one hamburger and he'd order 4 hamburgers and, you know, three orders of French fries. And then how stupid was I to agree to split the bill at the end of the road trip? Hondo was a mountain man, isn't he?
Yeah, he could eat a lot. You know, they stayed close for a long, long time. In fact, when Frank Howard managed the San Diego Padres back in the very early 80s, Wimpy, Eddie Brinkman was one of his coaches.
You played for Hondo in San Diego when he's a genuine original, isn't he?
You're not kidding.
Still lives down in Virginia, doing okay. Brinker, of course, passed away a couple of years ago. But Brinker could pick it. And an outstanding infield coach as well. Now you come to New York and you remember guys like Frank Howard. I was with the Yankees when Howard came to New York with Dallas Green. Charlie Fox was on that staff. Pat Corrales was on that staff. Here's the 1-ball delivery to Brandon Nimmo. There goes, oh, he started it and slammed on the brakes, did Conforto at first.
I'm not sure what that was. It was almost like it was a busted hit and run right here. Look at the swing by Nimmo. I mean, here's a guy early in the count. You don't see him take a hack like that unless you've got a play on.
I think it was Amaro seeing that swing and telling him to come back because he's not looking. Ruben, outstanding baseball guy and an outstanding first base coach. 1 ball, 1 strike. Down and in for a strike. Well, when Hondo was he was a coach with the Yankees. I mean, it was always a joy. I mean, you would go on the road with him, Chris, and he'd tell you stories all night long. And,
sure.
I'll never forget when Dallas Green got fired. It was at the Reds. The Yankees were staying at the Hyatt in Detroit, and Dallas was called up to George Steinbrenner's room in Detroit at the Hyatt, and Dallas calls down to a room where all the coaches are. Corrales is there, Charlie Fox is there, and Hondo's there. And basically Dallas said to George, look, I know you want to fire me, but you know you ought to keep some of the guys on the staff. They're good guys. Basically George fired all of the guys that came in with Dallas, meaning Charlie Fox and Pat Corrales. Swing and a miss. Good bounce back by Stevenson. That's second out of the inning, and here comes Austin Jackson. Another look at a Stevenson punch out, his first of the afternoon.
Well, the changeup, and that's a split finger pitch that he uses as his changeup. He's got a ton of confidence in that pitch, and you can see him now. Really, once you start getting a strike on the hitter, he's going to that pitch because the deception is there, and he's had a lot of success using that pitch throughout the season. That's one reason why he's back here right now.
Charlie Fox asked me to come into the room where the coaches were. Dallas Green calls down from Steinbrenner's rooms saying to Fox and Corrales, we're out. But I asked them to keep Hondo, and John Stearns was on that staff too, and Billy Connors was the pitching coach. There's a shot into the left field corner. It's going to be 3 hops to the wall. Conforto around second, going to third. It kicks away from Irvin. That's going to allow the run to score. The ball gets away, but Jackson will hold at second base. So a double for Jackson. Irvin had no chance to get the runner, and fortunately Jackson had pulled up, or else he could have gotten a third. Here's another look.
I'm just stunned that Jackson was not in the lineup last night after having the kind of night he did the first night with 3 hits. Irvin picks the ball up after it gets away from him and then just kind of throws it into the infield, and that was a wild one right there. I don't think it really had an effect on the play. I'm not sure they're going to have a chance to get the runner at the plate, but you still want to hit the cutoff man or the second cutoff man.
Missed
or
all
the third
three.
cutoff man.
They'll run in and a runner at second. Good block by Casale. And another didn't show up on the field, but another defensive lapse by the Reds.
Just had the hat trick with one throw.
Fortunately, no error charged, and the runner stays at second. So a run in. Jackson's 2-base hit, his 19th run batted into the season. Stevenson to the stretch to Mesoraco, hitting in the 8th spot. Wrap it up. Frank Howard is in the room. George Steinbrenner gets on the phone with him and says, Mr. Steinbrenner wants to talk with you, and they will walk Mesoraco intentionally and bring up the pitcher, Jacob deGrom. George Steinbrenner gets on the phone and says, Hondo, I want you to stay to be a part of the new staff. Bucky Dent was going to take over. And the end result was Hondo, standing in the room with his hand on his hip, said, Mr. Steinbrenner, my mama told me always to leave the game, leave the dance with the girl who brung you. And I'm going with Mr. Green. That was Frank Howard.
Yeah.
Loyal to Dallas Green. Look out. That's going to go all the way to the backstop, and 2 runners will advance.
Well, George, I guess it's kind of appropriate that we went on and talked about Frank Howard a little bit here today, because today he celebrates his 82nd birthday. So happy birthday, Skip, wherever you may be right now.
I think I still have the audio of his tirade when you were playing with the Padres in San Diego.
It'll make your ears fall off, I'll tell you that.
As we talked about, Brinkman and Howard went to Ohio State together, teammates and teammates throughout the major leagues too. What a great guy and a tremendous asset to the game of baseball. So second and third for deGrom, swing and a miss. 2 lapses by the Reds. Stevenson trying to battle his way out of it. Swing and a miss, 1 and 2. They called him the Capital Punisher.
Yeah, he's a great nickname. I mean, Hondo is the one he went by a lot. The Capital Punisher. How about the Washington Monument?
Yep. The Bengal bomber when he was in Detroit. Well, the Mets get a run, leadoff walk. Boy, do those walks haunt. And they did for Stevenson in this inning. $82.99. Watch every out-of-market regular season game live or on demand. Your subscription includes MLB At Bat Premium, allowing you to watch live baseball on your favorite supported devices. Blackout and other restrictions do apply. Visit MLB.tv to take advantage of this special offer. A special offer as we watch a special pitcher today, Chris. DeGrom with a 1-0 lead. And when you look at it, we've talked about his ERA, best in all of Major League Baseball. Look at the numbers. His strikeouts per 9, all very impressive. At the end of it, though, is a 5-7 record. And some of the worst run support of anybody in baseball.
Nothing you can do about that. I mean, except continue to go out there. And of course, nowadays you have a lot of different ways to evaluate pitchers. You know, even beyond wins and losses, there are his earned run average, there's WHIP, there's FIP, which is a fielding independent pitching number. There's XFIP. There's all sorts of things. And DeGrom is right at the top of the list with guys like, you know, Trevor Bauer and, of course, Chris Sale having an incredible year as well.
Here's Billy up for the first time to lead off the 3rd inning. Hamilton at 226, 3 homers and 22 knocked in. That slapped the other way and out of play. When you look at the Reds' numbers against DeGrom, not many have had success. Scooter Gennett came in at 333, 5 for 15. Here's a bloop into center. Jackson won't get there, and Billy's on. So the Reds get the leadoff hitter on for the 2nd consecutive inning. And we'll see if he'll be off and running.
Well, a little changeup that he gets right out on the end of the bat, and you know, it's a couple of hitters now. One little, excuse me, base hit by Scooter Gennett. This one bloops in there, and it's all part of the ball game. But you know, if you're the Reds, you've got to put one on the board here whenever you get a chance, and that means Billy being aggressive on the base paths.
You talk about getting a strikeout when you need it as a pitcher, and as a base runner, you need a stolen base when you need it, not when it's just putting numbers up.
Hey, what DeGrom does is what a lot of pitchers do, but he does it as well as anybody. He holds the ball for a long period of time, trying to get the legs of the runner at first base just to cramp up a little bit, try to get him out of his rhythm. A runner has rhythm just like everybody else. And you're going to see that a lot, where somebody's going to call timeout because DeGrom holds the ball so long. Sometimes it's the hitter asking for time. Sometimes it's the umpire just saying enough is enough.
Billy not going. Showing bunt is Peraza. There goes Billy. The throw will be in the dirt and not in time, so Hamilton picks up his 3rd stolen base of the series.
Well, he got a big jump, and Mesoraco throws the ball. It's going to be a one-hopper down there, and they're going to take a look at it in the Mets dugout, and they're not going to ask for a review. This gives you an idea, though, how hard Hamilton goes into the bag. Look at him slide right over the top of the bag and basically holds on with his feet to keep from sliding off.
He came into the season with 243 stolen bases. That now gives him 270, tying ED for number 5 on the all-time list. Joe Morgan, of course, the all-time stolen base leader for the Reds at 408, and Barry Larkin just behind him.
They're going to jockey him around second base right there. You know, normally you say never make your third out of third, never try to steal third with nobody out. But when you're facing Jacob DeGrom and you have Billy Hamilton on second, I think you throw that code book right out the door.
1 ball, 1 strike to Peraza, showing bunt again.
And we've seen Jim Riggleman do this a lot, where you know, you get a situation with Hamilton on. He's the number 9 hitter. Now you have the leadoff hitter. Peraza handles the bat well. You let Hamilton steal second, and then you sacrifice him to third, hoping that the guy coming up next will be able to hit a little fly ball or something to get him in. That would be Phillip Ervin.
Don Long looks on at his shortstop at the plate. Rosario right behind Billy. We talked about it yesterday with the planes flying overhead. Riggleman was part of the Cardinals in the old days. Whitey Herzog would always put on the pickoff play at second as the planes flew over, because you couldn't hear the third base coach saying get back as they fly over the ballpark. Billy not going. The bunt popped up, and back is Hamilton. It hits him, but he's okay, and he's safe back at second. So a bad bunt by Peraza. Good job by DeGrom to get to the ball, and good job by Billy not to get caught off the bat.
I just get the feeling on this attempt that Peraza was trying to be a little bit too cute. Maybe trying to lay down such a good sacrifice that he'd have a chance to beat it out for a base hit. And when you drop that bat head the way he did right there, you're going to pop it up most of the time.
Normally the Reds' best bunter, not one of his best efforts by Peraza. So Billy's still at second. There's now one out, and here's Phillip Ervin, who continued his hot hitting, a homer and a sacrifice fly last night, and a base hit his first time up. Ervin singled to center and was stranded at third when Scooter Gennett was caught in a rundown between first and second for the final out of the first. Yeah, just like throwing over to first, Chris, and you still have the record of throwing over to first.
Hey, that was with Vince Coleman at first base. We used to have a play when we were up against Vince Coleman in the minor leagues, because he just ran at will. He was so fast and such a good base runner. And we'd have a pickoff play at second base just like that we saw DeGrom do right there, except that the second baseman would play behind the bag and the pitcher would basically drill the runner as he would slide back. So Coleman would get up. I mean, you pick him off try to pick off two or three times. You hit him each time. And he didn't like that very much. That was the only way we could slow him down.
And I think that's what you're talking about here. I mean, they're not going to pick Billy off, but they figure if they can shorten his lead by a step or two, they maybe will have the opportunity to throw out a runner at the plate on a base hit.
We were trying to raise welts.
Yeah, I know. And Vince, every time we see him, still has a big smile when he sees you.
Of course. he got me more than I got him.
StatCast, powered by AWS. Look at the positioning for Billy off second. How far he gets off. Short lead. His lead's been shortened up about 3 steps with all those throws over there. Pop foul and out of play to the right side.
I'll tell you, the guy who this is most difficult on is Phillip Ervin. I mean, he's facing Jacob DeGrom, who's got a combination of lethal pitches. And you've got a lot of activity going on behind DeGrom at second base. You've got the second baseman jockeying back and forth. You've got Billy dancing off the bag. Very tough to keep your concentration here.
No balls, 2 strikes to Ervin. Billy not going. Pitch just misses. And it's 1-2. First pitch strikes and ahead in the count. That's what DeGrom's been doing all year, and this day is no different against the Reds. 1 ball, 2 strikes here. Dribble foul to the left side. Try it again, 1-2. Great to have you with us, George Gray, Chris Welsh, Jim Day. We'll be checking in with him down by the dugout on the final of this 3-game series. Josh Hall, our producer. Brian Filippetti, our director. Matt Sigafus dialing up some highlights for you, and Lauren White with some graphic support here from Citi Field in New York. Last game of a 9-game road trip. Reds head home to play the Diamondbacks this weekend. DeGrom, a long pause on the rubber. They got it. Threaded the needle on the outside corner.
Well, he's got comeback action. He's got perfect accuracy with that pitch right at the top end of the strike zone. Not a lot you can do at all. I mean, if you're Phillip Ervin and you start swinging at that pitch, pretty soon you're going to be swinging at, pitches that are 3 or 4 inches off the plate.
4 strikeouts for the 30-year-old native of Florida. And here's Scooter. Scooter 3 hits last night. Fell behind 0-2, but singled to left in the first, trying to get their runner home. And where all 3 of these outfielders are right now, a base hit will easily score Billy. With 2 outs, they're back a step or 2. Uncommon speed at second base for the Reds. Billy Hatcher in the third base coach's box for Cincinnati, watching Rosario behind Hamilton. And Freddie Benavidez in the first base coach's box for Cincinnati. That's up high. Sure looks different with the haircut, doesn't he, Chris? He looks like a different guy.
Yeah.
From the long flowing locks. Turned 30 this year, but he still looks like he's 25 when you stand next to him. 1 ball, 1 strike. That's up high. Eugenio Suarez leads the club in runs batted in, but nobody has come up with more consistent hits with runners in scoring position for the Reds this year than this guy. Whether it's a bullet to right or a dribbler to left, he finds a way to get a runner in. Slaps that the other way, and it's 2-2. We talked last night about the strength of his hands, and when you go through the bat rack and look at the different bats, he uses a bigger bat than you would expect a guy his size to use.
Yeah, it looks bigger.
Great strength, not a big guy, but great strength in his hands and forearms. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Way wide, full count. Suarez waits on deck with 2 away here in the third and a 1-0 Mets lead. Still quick. I mean, even protecting away, still quick on the ball inside. And you figure that's yes, it's a 3-2 pitch, but DeGrom's trying to give him something to bang down to the first baseman. Change up away.
Well, he's got about 4 different pitches that he can throw in this situation. Tough guy to guess along with. Breaking ball. We got a little look at that when it was in his glove. He kind of spiked his index finger a little bit. We get the view of that. Of course, the hitter has no idea.
Well, they've tried about everything, so Mesoraco out to talk to DeGrom. Talked to Dave Island, and Island said one of the gifts, he's the pitching coach for the Mets, one of the gifts of his career is to spend this first year with Jacob DeGrom, the new pitching coach of the Mets. He's worked with some good ones in New York and Kansas City. He said nobody works harder than DeGrom, and nobody works smarter than DeGrom, and you add his ability with it. That's why he's one of the best in the game. Try it again, 3-2. Did he go? Yes, he did, says Ben May, the umpire down at third. Now the Reds threaten again. Runner stranded in scoring position for the second time, and they trail 1-0. From 700 WLW, be part of the Reds fan cam, a chance to answer Reds trivia, win prizes, and be a part of Reds Live. Want to have some fun? Head to the Holy Grail and have some fun with Mo. Fan cam begins at 6 this Friday at the Holy Grail. Reds off day tomorrow as they return home after today's ball game, and then in comes Arizona. And Chris, what a race over in the West. After last night's games, the Dodgers jumped back into first place, a half game ahead of the Diamondbacks. Colorado's only 2.5 back, and the Giants back alive again. They're 6.5 back in the West. So the Reds will get a look at one of the best teams in the National League again. 11 games over 500 are the Diamondbacks. Boy, they've put their bullpen together and it's been effective.
Yeah, it has been. And they're a team that you know, it's fun. I always enjoy this time of year. If you're covering a team like the Reds that are not in it this year, but you're playing contending teams, they just elevate the game just to a little better level. A lot more fun, much better games to enjoy both on TV and in person. So weather ought to be good this weekend. Come on down.
Here's Ahmed Rosario, the shortstop. He bounced to first time up, facing Stevenson. Stevenson a 1-2-3 first. In the second, oh, those leadoff walks, and you said it before the game, his bugaboo when he was up before. And there's a bloop into left. That'll be a base hit. Rosario is on, the leadoff hitter on for the second straight inning. Stevenson had trouble with an inordinate number of walks last year when he was in the rotation, and even this year down at AAA, he walked more than you would want him to walk. And that one came back to haunt him, a leadoff walk in the second to Conforto. Austin Jackson knocked him in for a 1-0 lead.
If you're going to give up the walks, you have to take away base runners from another way, and that would be give up fewer base hits.
Jackson going high, pop up. Peraza trying to deke him, and now Billy Hamilton will come in. Peraza trying to deke Jackson to make him think there was a throw coming in, and then he realized, I better get out unless Billy gets here. Fortunately, Hamilton was on his way in early and catches it almost in the shortstop spot. As you enjoy a Miller Lite, look forward to the whole true moment later in today's ball game. So McNeil pops up, not a productive at bat for him, and here comes Flores, who lined to right first time up. The Reds began their rebuilding process in earnest last year, and the Mets, with all the injuries they've had this year, they thought they could contend early on, but the bottom fell out with the injuries, and you're seeing a lot of their young players brought up from AA and AAA this year. Jackson going again, and there'll be no throw by Casale. He got a 3.5 step break. Casale had no chance to throw him out. Austin Jackson a stolen base.
Well, now look at the size of the lead right there, and that's the part of the game yet that Robert Stevenson still has to figure out. Being a little bit more conservative, although I got to say that he's facing today in Jacob deGrom, a pitcher that has given up as many stolen bases as anybody. So deGrom subscribes to the Greg Maddux theory of who cares about the guy at first base. I'll just make pitches to the guy at the plate instead.
That's Ahmed Rosario with the stolen base down at second. Good speed. Stolen 11 of his last 12 now since the All-Star break. It's been a weapon that the Mets have used more regularly. Flores tries to check it. He does. 2-0. Jim Riggleman put it about as succinctly as you could yesterday before the game when the Reds announced that Stevenson would pitch today. He said, look, you know, he's done everything he could do at AAA. We got to give him a chance here to see what he can do at the major league level. And part of that, Chris, is directly related to the fact that he's out of options after this year. So they got to make a decision on him for next year.
Yeah, a lot of time really between now and time to do that, George. There's a number of other pitchers that the Reds have to come to decisions on too. And you know, as it turns out, they always seem to work their way out.
2 balls, 1 strike. Right center field, long run, Hamilton. He'll get there. The runner will tag and go to third. Billy Hamilton was shaded towards left center. And from the get-go, it didn't look like Mason Williams had a chance of getting there. But boy, speed is a wonderful thing. Watch Billy.
Well, you see where Hamilton starts off a little bit left of the second base bag, and he keeps going and going. And he's got this premeditated so that when he catches the ball, he's going to try to turn and get the ball back into the cutoff man as quickly as possible. That's the former shortstop working right there.
Another Gold Glove caliber catch by Billy Hamilton. Went a long way to get it. So the runner goes to third. That's your second out of the inning, though. And here comes Conforto, who walked to lead off the second. And that's what started the Mets rally in inning number 2. By his own admission, Michael Conforto says he is healthy now, but he doesn't feel that the strength in that shoulder where he was operated on last year is not back fully. He expects to be fully back next year. There's a bouncer down to first, but foul. It hurt just to watch the swing when he tore the muscles in the socket of his shoulder on a baseball swing. They reconstructed the shoulder, and you watch him, he'll move that shoulder back and forth, the right shoulder, and end result, he's back after the operation, and he's hit over 300 for the last month. Swing and a miss, 1-2.
Well, that's a nasty pitch there that Stevenson has. I mean, he's got very good control of that pitch too. That split finger fastball is one where you basically take the baseball and you jam it in between your index finger and your middle finger. And sometimes there's a little bit of a seam preference and so on, but you know, it's the arm speed that sells it as a fastball, and boy, does it have some action.
Runner at third, Rosario. That's just wide. 2 balls, 2 strikes. A run, 2 hits for the Mets. No runs, 3 hits for the Reds. Stevenson trying to strand his third base runner of the afternoon. Good job, bounce back. Base hit, stolen base, and an advance to third, but Stevenson gets out of trouble. Mets still lead 1-0. Here comes Suarez. The ballpark in the First Star Super Suite, this climate control space with an upscale buffet, unlimited water and Coke products, and more is perfect for groups of 35 to 56. Book today at reds.com/groups. Here's Suarez, who struck out first time up. Reds got 2 hits, nothing to show for it in the first, as Scooter Gennett was caught in a run down with a runner at third. Runner did not score. They had a leadoff walk in the second inning to Mason Williams. He was left stranded. And a leadoff base hit by Billy Hamilton, who stole a base in the third, and he was left stranded. So each team has left 3 on base. DeGrom once again ahead 0-2. And Suarez strikes out for the second time. First time swinging, this time looking. That is now 6 strikeouts for DeGrom on this sunny afternoon at Citi Field.
And no argument from Eugenio Suarez right there, as it was right on the black. I mentioned that DeGrom was drafted when he was a 22-year-old there at Stetson University down in DeLand, Florida, just before he went to Stetson. They had another pretty good pitcher down there by the name of Corey Kluber.
May have heard of him, huh?
Of course, he's having a very fine year for the Cleveland Indians again. But if you look up his college numbers, I mean, there's really nothing here. He only really basically pitched 1 year for Stetson. He was 5-4, had an earned run average of about 4.5. Gave up, 20 more hits than he did innings pitched. He never really walked a lot. He never came close to striking out a batter per inning. He had 82 innings and only 56 strikeouts. But somebody somewhere here in this Mets organization saw some potential in him. Boy, oh boy. 9th round, he was a steal.
Kind of reminds you a little bit, Chris, of a guy that we loved when he played was Brandon Webb at Kentucky. Keith Madison always said, he was a good competitor, but I never thought he'd be what he became. And then unfortunately injuries sidetracked him. Big swing by Williams to the warning track, up against the wall, reaching up, making the catch is Brandon Nimmo. That just kept carrying, and Williams again showing that power that he's exhibited.
He hit it a couple of days too early, because back at Great American Ballpark, this baby's in the seats. A little bit of a hanger right there, and Williams gets it a tad out on the end of the bat, but that ball carried all the way to the wall.
Nimmo, a center fielder by trade, playing right here with the Speedy Jackson in center today. Here's Casale, struck out first time up. And some guys just get better, and I mean, you have to look at high school pitchers different than college pitchers. Some organizations will draft heavily with high school players just out of high school. Others will wait a year or two and take a second year or fourth year college product. Is there a better way, or do you see a difference in the pitchers that do sign?
I have never done the kind of research. I'm sure every ball club has done extensive research as to who makes it, who doesn't, how hard did they throw, and what percentage of those guys make it. How many left-handers do you get, and how many of those guys make it? I mean, there are all sorts of studies that you can do, and there are teams of mathematicians at the bowels of every stadium that are doing the work. But if you want a guy closer to the major leagues, you get a guy out of college. If you think you have an uber prospect like the Reds think they have in Hunter Green, then you take the best arm available, and that's what the Reds did with Green. Unfortunately, as we bring up Hunter's name, he's sidelined with a little UCL sprain, but hopefully he'll come back no problem.
A little low. Half the Mets defenders were on their way to the dugout. Well, he gets strikeout number 7 anyways. 2 strikeouts in the inning, 7 punch outs. Mets still lead 1-0.
Hamilton, Mason Williams in right. Infield of Suarez, Peraza, Scooter Jeanette. Brandon Dixon at first base, Casale hanging the signs for Robert Stevenson. Let's take you back to that Billy Hamilton catch, robbing Wilmer Flores. He went 96 feet. It was a 4-star catch, according to StatCast. That is the 14th 4- or 5-star catch that Billy has had this season. That is the most in baseball, and he makes it look so easy.
Just like you, JD, it makes it look like what you do so easy, sitting in a nice cool spot right by the dugout down there. It's hot, huh?
Blazing hot today, George.
Detroit, then Washington, where it was hot and humid. This is one of the hotter days of the year, huh?
Well, the sun being out most of the time, it is the sun is what beats you down.
I know you got your sunscreen on. You always do. Stevenson back to work. Here's Jose Bautista, Nimmo, and Jackson due to follow. Bautista ended an 0 for 23 skid last night with a base hit. Tries to check it, can't do it. 2 balls, 1 strike.
Well, I wouldn't blame Jim Day if he got out of the sun, you know, and went up into the press box.
No.
Sat behind a nice closed window with some AC kinking.
No, he wouldn't do that.
Oh, he would do it. I would do it.
Second leadoff walk issued by Stevenson. He did it in the second, and then a leadoff base hit in the third. So for the 3rd straight inning, the Mets have the leadoff batter on. Second walk allowed by Stevenson, and here's Nimmo, who struck out first time up. When you're in the middle of a rebuild, you got to find out what you have in the minors and what you have on your bench, and that's what the Mets are doing with this kid. Good speed, good contact, one of the toughest to strike out. He and Peraza have been in the top 3 or 4 the last 2 years in the league. Toughest to strike out. Short swing, he'll make contact. So it's not often you'll see what you saw in the second inning, a strikeout.
Now that he's got 2 strikes on him doesn't mean anything, but I mean, they're giving him the left side of the infield. So if he were to lay a bunt down, if he wanted to, presumably he can. You know, that would be very tempting. I mean, if you're not going to bunt when you're hitting 248, when are you going to bunt?
Runner not going, pitch wide. And all the fans and all of us, Chris, you come to the ballpark, watch batting practice, and you see players take 1 or 2 or usually just 2 bunts before they start swinging away. But how many really spend time to work on the art? Not many in this day and age. Peraza does. Runner bluffs going in the dirt. Nice scoop by Casale. The runner will hold. And it's not even during the season. You know, if you've got speed like your Billy Hamilton or Peraza, the time to do it is in the off season, and there's so many good bunting instructors out there that can help you get better.
Well, yeah, I don't know how much. I don't know whether these guys actually need instruction or just repetition.
2-2. Runner not going. There's a bloop into left. That's a base hit. Bautista around second. He's going to go to third. The runner coming into second. That's a 2-base hit for Nimmo.
Nimmo just shut me up, didn't he? That's a pretty good swing right there in the left center field gap. He's thinking about going the other way because, you know, Stevenson's been throwing so many off-speed pitches down and away. That time he gets a fastball up and he just takes it right over the head of the shortstop.
So now second and third, nobody out, and here comes Austin Jackson. He doubled a left into the corner, knocked in the first run for the Mets. This is his 11th game with the Mets since being picked up. He started the year in San Francisco. Then on to Texas, was released in July, picked up by the Mets with the injuries they've had in their outfield, and especially Juan Lagares, who's a Gold Glove caliber center fielder. They've been playing other players out of position. Of course, you know about Cespedes, who's out for the season now. Jackson will give you good defense in center. He's a good base runner, and since coming over, he's hit over 400. Overall, with the base hit, he's now 12 for 28 as a Met. Spent a good chunk of last year with the Indians and was right around 300 almost all season. Two balls, one strike, and a little action starting in the Reds bullpen here in inning number 4. Michael Lorenzen has started to loosen. Lorenzen pinch hit in game number 1 of the series on Monday. Slowly stretching it out here in the 4th. Infield halfway for the Reds with nobody out here in the 4th, and second and third for the Mets. And we'll go full again, 3-2. Takes a little off, and there's a big strikeout for him.
I think he took a little off on nearly every pitch he threw to Austin Jackson, and that at bat finally found a really good location right here. The curveball right there that he's gone back to pretty much scrapped the slider, I believe, that Bob Stevenson has. So a key strikeout right there. Now one down and a couple to go.
They will intentionally walk Mesoraco for the second time, and that'll bring up the pitcher DeGrom with the bases loaded, and it does give you the potential for a double play here. We'll see what DeGrom does. He struck out first time up.
I got to tell you, I'm not a big fan of this right here, especially with a pitcher like Robert Stevenson, who has a hard time throwing strikes. I mean, he's walked 3 today, 4 including the intentional walk. Now you got the bases loaded, nowhere to put them. And it doesn't happen only with the pitcher at the bat. Let's just say the pitcher strikes out, you still have to throw strikes to the next guy. So I just like giving the pitcher a little bit of leeway. I mean, Mesoraco's hitting $188. There's a reason he's hitting number 8 in the lineup.
But he has 5 home runs since coming over, and if you let him hit and he puts one into the seats, you'll never hear the end of it.
Well, you know, that's on the pitcher.
Yep.
So Stevens has got to find a way to throw the ball over the plate. DeGrom will be taking probably at least 1 strike.
2 balls, no strikes, and bases loaded for the Mets. And there's ball 3.
Wow, on a 2-0 pitch to the pitcher, he's throwing a curveball. That just goes to show you, I think maybe he feels like he's got better control. of his curveball than he does his fastball.
And he
a
walked the
curveball.
pitcher. 4 straight wide ones. Stevenson walks in the second run for the Mets. It started with a walk to Batista, and it's culminated with a walk here.
I mean, if I didn't see it live, I would think that my TV was lying to me right there. A 2-0 curve and a 3-0 curve to the opposing pitcher with the bases loaded.
Three walks on the afternoon, bases still loaded, and here comes the speedy Rosario. Very difficult to double up. Three walks plus 2 intentional walks, so 5 total free passes. Down to third, but foul. Joey Votto sitting, nursing that sore knee once again today. Looks on as his teammates have fallen down 2-0 with one of the best pitchers in the league out there for the Mets today in DeGrom. No balls, 2 strikes. Rosario bounced to first in the first inning to lead off the bottom of the first. In the third, he singled to left and stole a base. The old scoreboard at Riverfront Stadium, walks will haunt, and Riggleman has seen them come back to haunt the Reds in this game already. Fly ball right field. Long run for Williams, runner tagging at third. The throw will go into second, and it'll be first and third, and a sacrifice fly for Rosario. That's his 29th run batted into the year. 3-0 Mets. After a clean first inning, Stevenson has spent the last 3 innings working out of the stretch from the get-go. As each inning, the leadoff batter is reached, twice by a walk, once by a hit. For him, not much of a difference physically because he's cut down his delivery, but mentally just unable to get the strikes when he needs it. Danny Darwin checking on the bullpen as Lorenzen continues to loosen. McNeil bounced to short and fly to center, 0 for 2. Missing again. Count evens, 2 balls and 2 strikes with Flores on deck for the Mets. Lorenzen is ready and pause after now a 30-pitch inning for Stevenson here in the fourth. Up to 73 for the afternoon, and you have a feeling, Chris, this may be his last batter if he doesn't get him.
I think he probably realizes that too. There's a point at which when you're out there struggling as a pitcher, you know that the leash is at the very last rung. And you got to pour a strike in here.
Did he go? Ben May says no, and we'll go once again full, 3 balls, 2 strikes. Efficient 1-2-3 first, then the leadoff walk started a long second. A leadoff base hit in the third, and here in the fourth, 31 pitches after the leadoff walk. Runner going, hopped up, and here comes Scooter. Here comes Peraza. Peraza will take charge. That'll do it. But the damage done. 2 walks and an intentional walk, plus a base hit, and it's 3-0 Mets. Reds Baseball on Fox Sports Ohio, being brought to you by your local Ford dealer. Ford, go further. And by Cincinnati Children's, now ranked number 2 in the nation by United States News and World Report. Another heat index day above 95 here in New York City. Heavy thunderstorms last night, hour 40 rain delay, but the Reds came away with a victory to even the series at 1 win apiece, and they'll be flying out over Manhattan by the time the afternoon is over, hopefully with a smiling scoreboard and a victory, but they're going to have to come from behind to do it, and come from behind against one of the best pitchers in baseball, Jacob deGrom. Dixon, the pitcher spot, and Hamilton due up as we go to the top of 5. Dixon flied out first time up. Michael Lorenzen came in from the bullpen during in between innings, and he went right to the bat rack, so he is loosened and ready to come in. He will not only come in to pitch next inning, but he'll come in to pinch hit as the number 2 batter here in the 5th. Swing and a miss by Dixon, and again no balls, 2 strikes. Seems like every at bat starts 0-2 with deGrom on the mound.
I mean, he is a pitching coach's dream with that.
You know, you hit the nail on the head, Chris. Dave Island said exactly that. The new pitching coach said it's been a gift for me to watch number 48 this year. Not on the edge of your seat very often when this guy's on the mound.
Well, they have been actually, because the Mets have scored very few runs in his behalf. So even when he pitches an outstanding game, you know, it's still a nail biter.
In lies the 5-7 record, even with a 1.85 earned run average. Swing and a miss. That is strikeout number 8 for Jacob deGrom. You know, talked about it earlier. He's either been anywhere from 1 to 5 in run support, lowest run support. Homer Bailey, we talk about it often, is at the top of that list again. And Jacob is there at 3.41. Homer will be back on the mound after losing game 1 of this series. And here comes Lorenzen to pinch hit. Lorenzen appeared in game number 1 of the series and pinch hit and struck out against Noah Syndergaard. And after the game, I asked him, he said, what was it like? He said, it was great. Not the results, but it's something to to hit against something that good. And he's got back-to-back at bats against 2 of the best in the business. Syndergaard won game number 1, pitched well, struck out Lorenzen, and here it's 1 ball 1 strike with deGrom. Every day is an education for a young ball player. 4 for 15. The Reds, of course, had outstanding success off the bench pinch hitting. Largely thanks to this guy. Different story though when you're facing this caliber of right-hander. 1 ball, 2 balls, 2 strikes. Right again, 2-2 to Lorenzen. Fly ball into right. Brandon Nimmo there. He's got it, and there's 2 away.
Get over $9,100 below MSRP on this specially equipped Sierra 1500 Denali.
If you're just joining us on this noon start New York time, the Reds trail at 3-0. 3 runs, 3 hits for the Mets. No runs, 3 hits for the Reds. Billy Hamilton has one of those 3 hits. A single in the 3rd and stole his 27th base. That ties him with Eric Davis on the all-time Reds stolen base list. He was left stranded as the Reds have stranded 4 through 4. Loop behind short. Rosario there. He'll squeeze it. 87 pitches through 5 for deGrom, who leads it 3-0.
Jake Owen is going to be performing live on the field this Saturday. Everyone with the ticket to the game will have a chance to enjoy one of country music's hottest acts. Purchase your tickets now at Reds.com. Check out some news and notes around the league. Bartolo Colon just keeps keeping on. Big sexy. A couple of older guys. CC Sabathia, 12 strikeouts last night. Most in career start under 6 innings. And boy, the Boston Red Sox. You want to talk about keeping on, keeping on. They have been unreal this season.
Pretty good list there, JD. And congratulations to Sonny Gray in that extra inning game. Demoted to the bullpen. He came in last night, got credit for the victory. Maybe that'll straighten him out. The Yankees won in extra innings, but so did the Red Sox. So the Yankees still 9 games back. The Indians start the day with a 9-game lead over the Twins. And in the West, Oakland a 5.5-game lead over Houston. Ground ball to short. Peraza has it. One away on the ground ball out as Flores bounces out as Michael Lorenzen takes over. So for Robert Stevenson, 4 innings, 3 hits, 3 runs allowed. He walked 5. 2 of them were intentional. Your report card on Stevenson, Chris, his first start coming back.
Not good. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. It looks like the same Robert Stevenson as the Reds sent down. I'm just still beside myself that I just saw what he did with Jacob deGrom up there with the bases loaded.
Conforto trying to stretch it into 2, and he will.
Well, you got to be thinking double right out of the batter's box to get one on a ground ball that goes through the middle here. I know you got the center fielder playing way around, and the Reds do the best they can to get it back in there. I mean, Mason Williams fields that ball and it comes up throwing immediately, and Conforto just outran it into second base. That is really good hustle.
Fielded cleanly and thrown cleanly by Mason Williams. Hustle by Conforto. He's in scoring position, and here comes Jose Bautista. Fly ball out and a leadoff walk in the 4th that started the rally. Here's a liner, 1 hop picked up by Peraza, long throw, and Dixon keeps a foot on the bag.
Nice play. Well, he's getting more and more comfortable at shortstop. You know, there was a time, and I keep going back to thinking about all the different people that when the Reds received him in the trade, remember he came over from the Braves and then the Dodgers with Schebler in that deal that sent Todd Frazier out, and everybody said that, oh well, you know, based on our observations, he'll never be able to play shortstop. That's why he was playing second base. Lost the second base job to Scooter Gennett when Gennett out-hit him last year, and then of course when Cozart left, it was Peraza playing shortstop full time, and boy has he ever gotten nice and comfortable there. Quick release, he's got plenty enough arm. So that's an example of where the player has adapted to the point where he's changed the scouting report on himself.
Here's Brandon Nimmo, 1 for 2, a double, part of that rally in the 4th inning. He struck out his other time up. Runner still at second, but now 2 away. Johnny Alvarez, the former director of international scouting for the Reds, was with the Braves when they picked Peraza. He believed from the get-go that he would be a solid leadoff hitter, a 280 hitter. He would steal you 35 to 40 bases a year, and he thought he could play shortstop on a regular basis. They moved him to second. That's when they had Andrelton Simmons as the shortstop. So there's no way they're going to move Andrelton Simmons off short. They figured he would be an above average second baseman. And who knows, he may end up being there someday. But you're right, he's gotten more comfortable at short. Can play center, can play the outfield. Like some projected him as your best talented extra player on a real good team, where you could play him one day in the outfield, one day in the infield. But he's the Red shortstop right now. Full count 3-2. Lorenzen dealing with Nimmo. Left field. On the run is Irvin. Will he get there? No, it's off the top of the wall. That's going to get another run in. And Brandon Nimmo, after the Reds kept him quiet for the best of 2 ball games, has back-to-back doubles. A run batted in, and the Mets now lead it 4-0.
He's had really 2 very good at bats back-to-back, both of them going the other way. The first was a base hit off a fastball from Robert Stevenson. That way he just waited back and picked on that breaking ball, and boy, supplied a lot of power. Nearly went opposite field out of here, and that would be a poke.
Another runner in scoring position for Austin Jackson, who also has a double on the afternoon. 3 doubles for the Mets, 2 by Nimmo, 1 by Jackson. Jackson's double in the second plated the first run for the Mets. That's a strike on the lower end of the strike zone. 0-2. Lorenzen finished strong at the end of last year. Had a setback in the early going of spring training with forearm tightness, and there's a bullet into center. Here comes Billy. Here comes Nimmo around third. Won't even be a throw. It's a run scoring base hit by Jackson. That's his second run batted in, and the Met lead is now 5-0.
Yeah, really interesting story on Austin Jackson this year is with the Giants. They thought that they would really, they need some outfield help, and he ends up getting traded to Texas and basically immediately released by Texas. It was like the Giants didn't want to release him. We'll let you release him. And so he's looking around for a place to play, comes over here, and boy, he has just gone off, and he's had a tremendous series. Double and a single. He scored a run, drives one in there.
Over 400 since coming over to the Mets at the end of July. Here's Mesoraco. The Reds took the bat out of his hand twice, intentionally walking him to get to DeGrom. First time Stevenson struck out DeGrom to end the second. But in the fourth, after they walked Mesoraco to load the bases, they then walked DeGrom to force in the second run. On the corner for a strike. Right field towards the corner. Long run Williams. It will be a foul ball. It rattled around off the corner wall. A couple of feet short of a double for Mesoraco. Waves at that one for the final out of inning number 5, but a couple of doubles and a single. The Mets play add-on. They lead at 5-0 heading to the 6th. built for low ERA and impressive performance on the mound. Jacob deGrom's been something else today, Chris.
Well, George, he's got the kind of talent that if you give him a couple of runs of support, he kicks it into a whole different gear. That's what he's been able to do, is change up early on, but he's just throwing so many strikes early in the count that all the Reds hitters are basically back on their heels by the time they see 2 pitches. Pretty much the way we thought this game would go, with the exception of maybe the Reds or the Mets having 5 runs on the board already.
And you're right, before they see 2 pitches, and usually it's 0-2 after those 2 pitches. 17 of 19 batters first pitch strikes from Jacob deGrom. That's a prescription for success, and he's been doing it all year. Comfortable at 87 pitches as we go to the 6th inning. Top of the order, Jose Peraza up, bounce to third, pop to first. That's the kind of percentages you look to see, Chris. Bloop to right, it'll drop for a hit. So Peraza with a leadoff hit for the Reds. Reds had a leadoff walk to Williams in the 2nd. That's the only other leadoff batter they've had on. They've stranded 4 through 5 and trying to get something going here in inning number 6. Here's Phillip. Irvin singled to center in the 1st. If you joined us late, Reds had a great opportunity, 1st and 3rd, with 1 out, but a strikeout of Suarez and then Scooter Gennett with runners at 1st and 3rd. Tried to get caught in a rundown, but Rosario tagged him before the run could score for the final out of the 1st inning. They stranded 1 in the 1st, a walk in the 2nd, and a leadoff base hit by Hamilton in the 3rd. Since then, deGrom had retired 9 in a row prior to the base hit by Peraza. 1 ball, 1 strike. And you use the words gamer and professional to a lot of players, and Dave Island described that exactly the same way for this guy. And Chris, it's much more difficult when you don't get run support, you're on a losing team, to keep it at a high level of performance as he's done. Not easy.
Well, I mean, you're still pitching for the ball club out there, and you're doing the best you can. I mean, it just shows you what a pro he has become. I think that just watching Jacob deGrom, there are probably a few pitchers in that Reds dugout that could learn something.
Most focused, most impressive teammate pitcher that you ever played with?
Well, you know.
There goes the runner. Bounce foul.
Maybe Steve Rogers, when I was with the Expos, is right there. I mean, always prepared, always ready to go. It's a guy that, I mean, there were a lot of them that were good, but Rogers stands out. John Denny was always prepared. And Mario Soto. I mean, you know, even though he just knew what he wanted to do. I think more back in those days it was more about the pitcher and what the pitcher could do rather than what the hitter could do, according to the scouting report. I'm not sure what's going on right here. Mesoraco wanted to know what the count is. He's looking at the scoreboard and says, is it 3 balls and 2 strikes? So the umpire should be keeping count. Somebody else out there should have a clicker and a counter out there, because you don't want to rely only on the scoreboard to keep the count. Sometimes the home plate umpire, you know, will mess it up.
So Lance Barksdale, the home plate umpire, with Will Little, Kerwin Danley, and Ben May out talking about the count and about each pitch.
And this is basically what a review would have to be if the umpires wanted to call up to New York and say, hey, run through all the pitches in this at bat and tell us what the real count is. And I think that's what they're going to do. Hopefully they've been watching this in New York already, just down the street from here in Manhattan. And by the time he gets a headset on, he's going to know exactly what the count is. Daydreaming during day games.
Mesoraco thought it was ball 2, not ball 3. He was alluding to the foul ball down the left field line off the bat of Irvin.
You know, the one good thing about those clickers, George, you never have to reboot them. and they never run out of batteries. And you never have to search for Wi-Fi.
Talk about tools of ignorance for a catcher. For pitching coaches and umpires, the clickers are always there. So they'll check in with the replay center. What was the most impressive thing that you noticed when you went to the replay center? I mean, I was amazed at the intensity in the replay area there. How about you?
For me, how fast a couple of minutes can go when you're sitting in the hot seat trying to decide whether the play was safe or not. And
3-2. 3 balls, 2 strikes.
Look at that. He feels very strongly about that.
So the call was confirmed by the umpire. They can count. Good job, Lance. We'll leave the rest of that to your imagination.
If you're looking for Christmas ideas for these guys, I have an idea for you.
There goes the runner. Here comes the throw, and they will get him. Well, on the 3-2, strike him out, throw him out, double play. The Reds base runner erased.
Now the fastball goes right by him, and it was such a good spot that it was almost like a pitch out.
And that's old school. And Jim Riggleman did what Bobby Cox used to do, Whitey Herzog used to do, and there's a long pause and a question, an umpiring question, put a play on. And the Reds did, but they got their pocket picked, so it's a strike him out, throw him out, double play. Here's a pop up to the right side by Scooter, and it's bobbled by the first baseman, and another life for Scooter. Nimmo had it in his grasp. It bounced off the glove a second time and then hit the railing, so it'll be an error on the first baseman Flores.
Yeah, I think he thought he was a little closer to that fence than he really was. You see him kind of being very cautious there, and of course once it starts bouncing off the wall, I don't think you can catch it anymore.
By the way, if you're keeping score at home, the replay review was 1:07 to prove that Lance could still count. There's 1 ball, 1 strike.
If you're keeping score at home, give us a call. Let us know what the count is.
One ball, 2 strikes to Scooter. Single to left and struck out, and he strikes out again for Jacob deGrom. Back-to-back strikeouts. That's 10 strikeouts on the afternoon for deGrom. Mets lead at 5-0.
last year. Billy Hamilton all the way to the wall, has to adjust in midair to rob Carlos Asuaje of an extra base hit. And when we sat down before the season started, he called this his most difficult catch. Overran it just a bit, but adjusted, like we've seen him do so many times. Outstanding catch a year ago today.
All right, JD, give us your Billy Hamilton on that catch.
Well, he's got to outrun the ball.
You're the best, JD. Talk about a highlight reel. Well, the pitcher spot due up. DeGrom, but DeGrom's day will be done. The arm will pitch hit and pop out. So Jacob DeGrom's day is done on this hot and steamy day, Chris. But we got everything we expected to see from the big, tall right-hander. He was superb from start to finish, ahead of almost every hitter, and most hitters 0-2 or 1-2, and he exits with a 5-0 lead.
You know, George, a very boring way to pitch. Getting ahead of hitters and then putting them away easily. I mean, the hits the Reds got. Scooter Gennett gets the first hit, a little bleeder down the left field line when they had the big shift on him. A blooper by Peraza. Another blooper by, well, Irvin had a hard hit ball. That was really the only hard hit base hit the Reds were able to get off of DeGrom. Because Billy Hamilton was a blooper. I guess today, if you make solid contact off DeGrom, you feel like you won the at bat.
Fly ball, right center field. Hamilton over, and he'll haul it in off the bat of Ahmed Rosario. Rosario bounced out, single, stole a base, and a sacrifice fly to right made it 3-0 in the fourth. So Rosario at 1 for 3 afternoon, 2 away. Storylines for this day: Robert Stevenson back for his first appearance in 2018. 4 innings, 3 hits, 3 runs. 5 walks, 2 of them intentional, got him into trouble and proved to be part of his undoing. Meanwhile, DeGrom kept cruising. A 10 strikeout performance by Jacob. The Reds have no runs and 4 hits off DeGrom through his 6 innings of work. There's Jeff McNeil. Bounced out, fly to center, and popped to short.
That hit is.
Now you're talking about great teammates, Chris, and pitchers who impressed you both in the clubhouse and as a teammate and on the mound. You mentioned Steve Rogers. And every year I'm fortunate to be part of rookie development that Major League Baseball holds down at Lansdowne Convention Center. And Steve, of course, still with the Players Association. And I tell so many of the young players, it's not about always the 20-win seasons or the big days, but it's about the tougher days. And I'll never forget, in that playoff game with the Dodgers, he volunteered to come in from the bullpen after starting. He ended up losing the game.
Yeah.
Gave up a home run to Rick Monday. But what he did was show his teammates he had their back. And what he did was stand up and answered all the questions afterwards. And you remember all the great days he had, but more than anything, I remember that day because he proved what a man he was. There's a walk to Jeff McNeil. Lorenzen's second inning of work. He gave up 2 singles and a double last inning and 2 runs. And here with 2 outs, he walks McNeil, and here comes Wilmer Flores. Everybody leads in different ways. I mean, Joey Votto talks often about the way he leads, and he leads by every time he steps in the batter's box and every time you watch him prepare. Steve Rogers was one of those kind of guys. Joey, if you joined us late, not starting again today, still nursing that sore right knee after being hit by a pitch in Washington. And yes, players on other teams watch. When I went into the clubhouse before the game today, Todd Frazier and Jose Batista were sitting next to each other, and they said, what the heck went on in Washington? And they're two old school guys, meaning Votto got hit. Why didn't somebody get hit afterwards? Said, Batista said, when we first started, you ended it the next day or the next inning and it's over with, turn the page.
Well, I think, George, in that situation, there were a couple of attempts.
Yep.
And they were both misses. One was followed up by a home run. The other was followed up, I think, by a base on balls.
Votto talking to Matt Harvey down in the Reds dugout this afternoon on the bench. There goes the runner. He bluffs, and here's a shot to left. Curving. If it's fair, it's gone, but it'll be about 10 feet foul. Boy, Rosario almost had his, rather, Flores almost had his 11th home run. He put the hammer on that one. Lorenzen to the stretch with the runner on first. Off the shin and glove of Peraza, it'll go as an error. So Jose Peraza commits the miscue, and there's going to be 2 on with 2 outs.
Ball hit very hard, and I don't know whether it came up on him or whether he just kind of lost the feel of that ball. And Riggleman's going to go get Michael Lorenzen.
39 pitches in 2 innings of work. Wandy Peralta will be on his way in to face Michael Conforto. Mets lead at 5-0 with 2 on. Time for our Skyline Chili call to the bullpen. You're watching Reds baseball on Fox Sports Ohio. Preston Tucker's connection to Cincinnati, and who was his happiest family member after the trade. Plus, the Reds went old school this past week with that train trip from D.C. to the Big Apple. Reds Weekly presented by Miami Valley Gaming, with a new episode Wednesday at 6 on Fox Sports Ohio and streaming on Fox Sports Go. Coming up after today's ball game, it'll be Reds Live post game. Jeff Picoro, Brian Giesenslaw will be by to keep you up to date and give you a wrap up of this 9-game road trip as the Reds will head home to take on Arizona on Friday. Here's Wandy Peralta, the third Reds pitcher. Robert Stevenson, 4 innings, 3 hits, 3 runs, all earned. Lorenzen, an inning and 2/3, 3 hits, 2 runs, and the runners on his responsibility. Here's Conforto, walk, struck out, and doubled. So lefty against lefty for Peralta.
Now, these are the kind of outings that you come in as Wandy Peralta, and you can move yourself up in the world a little bit by coming up here and being nice and tidy with your pitches, getting the lefty out immediately when you're called upon to do so.
Breaking ball misses down and away. The Reds with Amir Garrett and Peralta, their two lefties in this bullpen rotation. They've had as many as 3 and as few as 1 this year. That's a hard shot. This time quick hands from Peraza on a tricky hop, and he'll get the final out. So an error by the Reds. No harm here in the 6th. Going to the 7th. Reds trail by 5. With all the info you need for that game with Reds Live, presented by Ray St. Clair Roofing. There's Anthony DeSclafani looking ahead towards this weekend as the Diamondbacks come to town. DeSclafani will face Clay Buchholz, who's 5-1, as the Diamondbacks are right in the thick of it in the West. Matt Harvey will go on Saturday. Luis Castillo will go on Sunday against an Arizona team, Chris, that going into play tonight is a half game back of the Dodgers. Colorado 2.5 back, San Francisco 6.5 back in the West. Here's Lugo to take over with Eugenio Suarez coming to the plate. Lugo's 38th appearance of the year for this big right-hander who's been sometimes a starter, sometimes a reliever.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, George. Having a really good year this year, though. 78 innings, only 66 hits, and he has struck out exactly 1 per inning. So he's been on top of his game.
6 innings of 10 strikeout baseball for Jacob deGrom, as advertised, huh?
Yep. I mean, we've had kind of a treat in this road trip for having been able to see, you know, Max Scherzer in Washington and then deGrom here. Syndergaard the other night was extremely good. His line got blemished at the very end there. He ended up giving up 4 runs. He probably pitched better than what that indicates. But deGrom today, I know they didn't even sniff him.
2 balls, 2 strikes to Eugenio, who struck out twice against deGrom. That's a bouncer, backhanded, the long throw in time.
Well, that's a nice play. He just kind of went down there backhanded and, you know, flicked his glove down there and hoped that the ball was going to find us. Look how far he's got to go to get to it. I think that's kind of ball finding glove right there.
Yeah. But McNeil will take it.
Also goes to show you how hard the infield is, despite the fact that it was raining, you know, just 24 hours ago.
Jeff McNeil up from AAA. They regard him as a fine offensive player. The question is, will he play enough defense to be their second baseman of the future? Fine play right there. One away. You know, when you played, Chris, you came to New York. It was one of the worst infields in all of baseball. It got better towards the final years, and here at Citi Field, it's a much better surface. And hey, there aren't any bad surfaces anymore, are there? That's a slice down the third base line. Batista has it. 2 ground ball outs from Lugo. That's his calling card.
Now, you're right, George. The playing surfaces at the major league fields at this point, you know, there are good ones and there are better ones, but there are no bad ones.
2 quick outs for Lugo. And there's Kurt Casale, the catcher. Casale struck out twice. And now a quick message from Miami Valley Gaming.
Get ready to get lucky.
Looped into center. Long run for Jackson. He won't get there, and that's a base hit for Casale. So a 2-out hit for Casale. The Reds have a base runner. They've stranded 4 through 6 against DeGrom. And here comes Brandon Dixon. Again, if you joined us late, Joey Votto did not start again today, nursing that sore right knee. Been great to watch him the last couple of, you know, he hates not starting. You know that. But if you watched where he went from seat to seat in the dugout, he's really picked up. You saw him with Matt Harvey a little while ago. Yesterday, talking with Homer Bailey. The day before that, talking with Sal Romano. Talking baseball. We've seen him evolve as a hitter to be one of the best hitters in the game, and we've seen him evolve in his interaction with teammates. He leads by example, by the work ethic that he has and his approach at the plate. If you're stupid, you don't watch what he does. But as usual, I mean, if you're a smart pitcher, you're going to sit next to a great hitter, and Harvey's doing that right now. Popped into short center. Who'll take charge? McNeil does. Reds get a hit, but strand their 5th runner here in the 7th inning. 5-0 Mets. To battle for the Ohio Cup, purchase the Ohio Cup ticket package presented by the Ohio Lottery and receive an exclusive Reds t-shirt and your ticket to the August 14th game. This limited edition t-shirt only available through this offer. Purchase today at reds.com/themes. Be good to see Tito Francona back in Cincinnati as the Indians come to town for a 3-game series. That's right after Arizona. Here we go to the bottom of the 7th for the Reds. Peralta, who took over to get the final out of the 6th inning, takes over again here in the 7th. He'll face Jose Batista, the third baseman, who flied out, walked, and bounced out. Then Brandon Nimmo, 2 doubles, a run batted in, and Austin Jackson, a double and a single, and a couple of runs batted in. We talk about the pennant race for the Western Division as the Arizona Diamondbacks come into town, but also the wild card race has gotten very interesting in the National League. In the American League, of course, Boston, Cleveland, and Houston are the division leaders. In the wild card, the Yankees, even though they lost those 4 games, they're still in the hunt for the first wild card spot. Oakland has the second wild card spot, but Seattle's only 2 games back. And Tampa 9.5 back. In the National League, though, Milwaukee going into play today, the first wild card team. Atlanta the second. Arizona's only a half game back. Colorado 2.5 back, and then Cardinals 4. The Nationals 4.5, and the Pirates 5. So, I mean, you got the makings of an interesting last 7.5 weeks of baseball. But Batista takes the walk. He goes down to first. Leadoff hitter on once again for the Mets here in inning number 7. First walk allowed by Peralta, and here comes Brandon Nimmo. Mets do not play the Central Division this year. In the National League, Mickey Callaway, of course, was the pitching coach for Tito Francona in Cleveland last year. And before we left the clubhouse today, he said, say hi to the boys in Cleveland. They got it rolling again.
Yeah, they do.
Did a good job there as their pitching coach with Tito Francona. Brad Mills, the bench coach there.
They really talk in glowing terms of Mickey Callaway. We're very happy to see him get this opportunity, I'll tell you that. And they thought he was just a really a good fit. Not an easy thing to do, really, be a pitching coach who never pitched in the major leagues and then come over and take over a managerial spot.
And you look at his track record, it's very similar to Brian Price. You know, as a minor league coordinator and a coach, and then a major league pitching coach. That first year of managing, not an easy chore, especially in a big market like New York. That's a call, strike 3. Nimmo retired. That's his second strikeout. Uncharacteristic for him. He, along with Peraza, 2 of the toughest to strike out in the National League.
Yeah, he swung and missed at a changeup his first time up. This time he takes a perfectly placed fastball on the outside corner.
2 doubles for Nimmo and 2 hits for Jackson. The bottom of the order has done a lot of the damage. Jackson doubled in a run back in the 2nd, struck out, and then singled in the 5th run for the Mets in the 5th.
I want to send out some congratulations, George, today to one of our broadcasting brethren in the Reds minor league organization today for Dayton, the Dayton Dragons. Their longtime broadcaster, Tom Nichols, will call his 4,000th career professional game. They'll do it tonight when the Dragons take on the Lansing Lugnuts up in Lansing, Michigan. So, Tom, congratulations. 11 years he's been the voice of the Dragons.
Does a great job. And Josh Hess, his compatriot there, outstanding young addition to that broadcast staff, and what a great organization from top to bottom in Dayton. First class. And the streak continues. Sellout after sellout. 1 ball, 1 strike. Peralta peers in from the stretch. Runner holds. That's a strike. 2-2. Speaking of broadcasters, the Reds head back home, and you'll get to see one of our good friends coming back in the broadcast booth. We saw him in St. Louis, and Danny Graves will be back working radio on WLW. Good to see Gravy back and back part of the Reds family again.
It'll be he and Jim Day in the radio booth this weekend.
Swing and a miss. Jackson's retired. That's back-to-back strikeouts for Peralta. 2 away with a runner on first, and here comes the catcher, Devin Mesoraco. We're talking about Sal Romano's sinker last night. Now, Gravy had a sinker.
Oh, power sinker.
Was that lethal or what?
And a nasty slider.
Good to have him back in the family. Down and in. I think everybody in the Indians organization was happy to see Callaway get the job here. There are other people, though, who were surprised that Brad Mills hasn't gotten another shot to manage at the major league level. He did get a brief opportunity in Houston where things were really scrambled over there. Callaway, one of those who's a big supporter of Brad Mills, the bench coach for Tito Francona, and so is Tito. They're like, they're like joined at the hip, the two of them, aren't they? Hopefully Mills will get a chance one of these days.
I'm not so sure that at this point, you know, that's really high on his list. I think he's very happy with what he's been doing.
There's a comfort level between the two of them, that's for sure. For the game today, Gary DiSarcina, the bench coach here in New York, raving about Jim Riggleman and the job. I mean, he does a lot of the prep work. He said Jim Riggleman's done a tremendous job. I sure hope he gets to keep the job that he's worked hard to make better in this second half of the season for the Reds. DiSarcina was a AAA manager at Pawtucket, and the two of them became close during that era when Riggleman was a manager for the Reds at Louisville. 3 balls, 1 strike. As Mesoraco fouls it off the foot, we'll go full 3-2. A lot of decisions for these two teams on the field and off the field as well. Dick Williams has continued to say that he will wait until the offseason to make a decision on the manager for next year. That's wide, ball 4, and Mesoraco's on for the 3rd time. 2 intentional walks, a free pass there, and a strikeout for Mesoraco this afternoon. And here comes Riggleman.
It's got to be awfully annoying for Jim Riggleman to have to come out and get a couple of his pitchers in a game that, you know, he's just trying to keep it close here.
Karuri Maya was up throwing earlier. Nobody's throwing right now, but he told the home plate umpire Lance Barksdale that he'll double switch Karuri Maya into the game. Peralta's day is done. Maya's on his way in, and while the pitching change takes place, he'll take time out for these messages. You're watching Reds baseball on Fox Sports Ohio. It's like the old days, Chris, when they used to leave the gloves out on the field. Here comes Dilson, and Dixon's playing first. So what does he do? He said, I'll take your glove. Give me your glove. So remember the interview you did with Red Shandings where you talk about leaving the glove in the outfield?
Exactly.
Here's Jose Reyes, who will pitch hit in the pitcher's spot. A walk, 2 strikeouts, and then another walk. So 2 on, 2 outs. Kaori Maya takes over. Second appearance in this series. He came in Homer Bailey's game on Monday, game 1 of this series. Falls behind quickly 2-0 to the one-time shortstop, now utility player here in New York. Bloop down the left field line and out of play. And some Reds fans will remember there was a point in time when Barry Larkin was close to the end of his career, and the Reds and Mets had talked about a deal back in the Jim Bowden days, and this was the player that the Reds wanted in a trade for Barry Larkin. Trade never did materialize as Barry turned it down, and he ended up finishing his series, thankfully, as a Cincinnati Red. Seems like just yesterday in some respects and eons ago in other respects. For his career, 284, 144 homers, over 500 stolen bases for Jose Reyes. And in comes Kaori Maya, and there goes the 3rd walk of the inning. So the base is loaded thanks to free passes, and that's been a story that Jim Riggleman, he cocks the head back, just shakes his head and takes a deep breath. That's been the day today. Robert Stevenson went 4 innings, allowed 3 runs, 3 hits, but he walked 5, 2 of them intentionally, and 1 of them the pitcher with the bases loaded. Back to the top of the order, Ahmed Rosario. 1 for 3, a stolen base and a sacrifice fly that plated the 3rd run for the Mets. For whatever reason, the Reds have struggled against this New York team. They've lost 25 of the last 33. That includes the win last night. They did win the season series last year, but since 2013 they've struggled against New York. 6 straight balls from Kaori Maya. A lot of feeling around baseball and even in the Reds camp that the Reds might have traded the 2 of their big additions in the offseason, Jared Hughes and David Hernandez, that have anchored this bullpen down. There's a hard hit ball down to second. They'll take the out at first, and that'll end the inning. So 3 walks, nothing to show for it. The Reds running out of outs. They trail 5-0. for your entire crew back in the studios with the long rain delays and the late nights and the quick turnarounds as usual. Kent Dreamweaver, Ron Millenor, and both you guys, the whole crew back there, tremendous work. Be nice to be home, won't it be, and be back at the ballpark. Here's Dilson Herrera, came in on the double switch, his first at bat, hitting in the 8th spot. Dilson picked up his 2nd home run as a Red, and ironically, the home run yesterday put a smile on his face. But even more importantly, I mean, the last time he homered as a Met, it was against the Reds, and he got drenched by his teammates, and some of the former teammates were over congratulating him. Very likable young man, Chris, who finally is healthy. The shoulder is healthy. He's throwing again and without pain. Could always hit a little bit, and Jim Riggleman's starting to try to find a way to use him in the outfield, not just as an infielder.
Well, I mean, I think he's offensive first wherever he plays, and that's one reason why I'd like to see him get some at bats. Of course, he came over in the trade for Jay Bruce, so the Reds feel like at that time they gave up some value for Bruce. To get Herrera in return. Unfortunately, he's been injured and just really hasn't been able to kind of get into the flow of things, although he was hitting the ball very well down in AAA before his recall. One thing he did yesterday, he picked on that high fastball and hit it about 1.5 miles.
2 balls, 2 strikes to Herrera, the leadoff batter, facing Jerry Blevins, the 3rd pitcher for the Mets. Takes a little off, and that's strikeout number 1 for Blevins and strikeout number 11 on the afternoon. Jacob deGrom had 10. deGrom 6 innings, 4 hits, no runs, 10 strikeouts as advertised. Blevins' 45th game of the season.
45 games, 28 innings. That kind of gives you an insight as that he been normally used as a left-handed specialist. The old loogie. Left only one guy.
He's your Tony Fasas of this club, huh?
Tony's one of those minor league coaches we were talking about earlier, about all the former major league pitchers that they have now employed in the minor leagues as coaches. He's the roving pitching coach coordinator. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's just now getting into Louisville to size up the AAA club.
Here's Billy. Hamilton singled, stole a base, his 27th of the year. That ties him with Eric Davis on the all-time list for number 5, all behind Joe Morgan, the leader, of course. Popped out in the 5th inning. And as usual, came up with a highlight reel catch in right center field earlier this afternoon. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Big breaking ball, clips the outside corner, and how about this? Blevins has back-to-back strikeouts. That one looking 2 away, and here comes Peraza.
Well, there's an outside strike zone and there's an outside strike zone in a 5-0 game that's working on 3 hours.
That's a Tom Glavine, Eric Gregg strike. Here's Peraza, bounced out, popped out, and single to right. And on the hands, pop to the right side, battling the sun is Flores. He'll squeeze it. That'll do it. So another easy inning. Reds have been struggling for hits all day, and they trail at 5-0. Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on your car insurance. And by Toyota. For over 30 offers, visit buyatoyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. Place to go. Summertime, the Big Apple. Reds' final trip of the season to New York, and the final of a 9-game road trip. 2 in Detroit, 4 in Washington, and the 3 here in New York. Had high hopes of winning 2 of 3 here after winning last night behind Sal Romano, but Jacob deGrom got the Mets off and rolling with 6 innings of 4-hit, no-run, 10 strikeout baseball. And the Mets lead at 5-0 as we go to the bottom of 8. Jeff McNeil to lead it off. Neal grounded to short, flied to center, popped to short, and walked. Most of the damage down deep in the order for the Mets on this day. Two doubles from Brandon Nimmo. There's a pop up into left. Irvin has it for the first out. And a run batted in for Nimmo. Austin Jackson, a double and a single, and 2 runs batted in. And the walks proved to be critical for the Reds in this game. Here's Flores. Wilmer lined out, robbed of extra bases on a brilliant catch by Billy Hamilton in right center, grounded out and reached on an error. Be good to get home, huh, Chris?
It's been a long trip, really, George, and I think that the very onset of the trip, the Reds had much higher expectations. You know, you're going to have a good matchup, you think, when you face the Detroit Tigers for 2. They got kind of ambushed by the Tigers and quickly got out of town, lost 3 out of 4 in Washington, including having a rain out. And then that day-night doubleheader really took a lot of, I think, energy away from this ball club, and has not been the way they wanted it to go here in New York. Although you do face Syndergaard and deGrom at the bookends of the series, and it's never an easy thing when that happens. And really, the ball clubs right now looking, you know, trying to figure out a way to get some offensive flow back going. They missed Jesse Winker. Obviously, they missed Scott Schebler, a couple of left-handed bats in the lineup. And Jim Riggleman is trying to, you know, move pieces in and out. Last couple of days, they missed Joey Votto, the best hitter on their club.
Votto and Harvey still talking on the bench for the Reds, and that's a 5-pitch walk. Flores reaches, 1 out, 1 on, and here comes Conforto. A double, a walk in 4 plate appearances. And you know, when you walk into the opposing club's coach's room, and Pat Rossler, the hitting coach, and Dave Island, the pitching coach for the Mets, without Jesse Winker, without Scott Schebler, without Adam Duvall, who was traded, this lineup looked considerably different with their offense in the outfield. And take Votto out of the lineup, even when he played on Monday, he wasn't 100%. And hopefully the day off again today and a day off tomorrow, he'll be ready to go come Friday against Arizona. And one of the underlying stories of this trip was the guy sitting next to Votto, Matt Harvey, coming back to New York. And it was great to see how he handled it, Chris. You know, after watching him as a youngster in high school in Connecticut, and then watch him in college, and then the roller coaster ride he went through here, he owned up to the mistakes he made when he met the media here. And it was an important appearance for him before the media. He kind of turned the page on everything that happened in New York like a man.
Well, I mean, he did. And I didn't realize really until I saw the media throng in that interview that he did, and then watched the tribute that they played for him, you know, 10 minutes before the game on the first night the Reds were in here. I mean, he had reached basically iconic status here in no time. He was the guy that was going to save this franchise. He was the most eligible bachelor in New York. He was throwing 100 miles an hour and nobody could hit him. And then injury bug propped up, and a lot when you start pitching mediocre and then get caught doing things off the field that you really aren't all that proud of, then that's when it really gets blown out of proportion. There's the media throng right there.
That's Monday. He did not pitch in this series, but he offered to meet the media and kind of turn the page on the years he spent here. 3-2. He admitted he made some mistakes on the field and off the field. That's another walk, back-to-back walks, and the Reds have walked the ballpark on this afternoon.
Jeez.
Jim Riggleman will send out, he's given every lecture he can, and this time it's Danny Darwin will come out and try to get Gary Maya back and rolling in the right direction. You know, you think back in those that Matt Harvey era, you had Harvey, Syndergaard, DeGrom, Wheeler, Matz. That's a 5-man rotation that you thought would be for the ages, you know, going back to the best rotations the Mets ever had. And it shows you how fragile pitching is and how quickly injuries can change the dynamics of a pitching staff.
Yeah, that's why you can never count on anybody being healthy, you know, for their whole career. I mean, if it happens, it's rare. And you hope that when he comes back, you know, that you kind of get it a little bit more, and you learn how to pitch on your way back rather than just become a thrower.
Syndergaard is back and hopefully healthy, and DeGrom is. They've kept him. They didn't trade him at the trading deadline. Wheeler has pitched well. So they've got the makings of a pretty good rotation here in New York for next year. You don't know who the general manager will be. John Ricco, J.P. Ricciardi, Omar Minaya are all running it right now as Sandy Alderson continues his battle with cancer, and we wish Sandy only the best health-wise. But a lot of decisions to be made just for the Reds as they're going through it. Same thing here in New York with the Mets. There's Batista. Flied out, walked, bounce out, and walked again. Pop back, but out of play. 1 ball, 2 strikes. And the other part of what Matt Harvey went through as a youngster, to come up in a big city like this is not easy. He learned and will profit from it. 1-2. That's wide. 2 balls, 2 strikes. And really, after going through Tommy John and thoracic outlet syndrome, he knows that he probably is still a year away from being what his arm will be after bouncing back from 2 injuries. Not just a year or 2, maybe 3 years before you're back. And Batista is retired. There's your second out of the inning.
I don't know, George. I think talking to Matt Harvey, he's a lot closer than that. In fact, he says he feels 100% healthy right now, and I think that you know, it's a matter of him getting back into actually pitching strategy and adding some pitches. He's, you know, more recently thrown some slower curveballs in there to the hard stuff that he has good control over. And, you know, I think that you're going to see a much more well-rounded pitcher next year than you have this year. But I think he's healthy.
He is a free agent. His agent is Scott Boras. So this offseason will be an interesting thing for him. Here's Brandon Nimmo, struck out, back-to-back doubles, and then another strikeout. He's got a run batted in on the day and 2 runs scored. First batter, Kaori Maya has been ahead of, and now no balls, 2 strikes to Nimmo. 2 on, 2 out. In the dirt, good block by Casale. Hughes and Hernandez signed to 2-year deals this year. Iglesias still under Reds control, so the core of the bullpen intact. Will this guy be a part of it next year? There's a liner to right, going back Williams. He can't get it. 1 run will score. Here comes the runner around third. 2 runs will score. And the Mets have played add-on here in the 8th inning. Brandon Nimmo picks up his 3rd double of the afternoon, and for the 2nd time in 2 years, he's had a big game against the Reds.
Well, he was the guy, if you remember, I suggested he should bunt the first time up. That was not a good idea, but he has had 3 hits on the day, all of them doubles, 2 of them to left field. This one goes to right field, and that ball sounded like somebody stacking timber when he hit that baby.
Nimmo had a 2 home run game against the Reds last year here, and 2 brilliant defensive catches here. 3 doubles, 3 runs batted in on the day, and the Mets now lead at 7-0. The demise for Robert Stevenson started with leadoff walks, and here in the 8th, both free passes score on the double by Nimmo. There's Jackson. Speaking of doubles, his double followed a walk to Michael Conforto back in the 2nd. That made it 1-0 Mets. Struck out twice and then singled in another run in the 5th inning. That made it 5-0. Robert Gazelman is loosening in the bullpen for the Mets. For the Reds, Stevenson, 4 innings, 3 hits, 3 runs. Lorenzen, an inning and 2/3, 3 hits, 2 runs. Peralta, an inning, and Maya, 2 runs here. And that wild pitch will send the runner to 3rd. Another full count, 3-2 to Jackson. Line drive, right center. That's going to be a couple of hops to the wall. Another run's going to score, and it'll be 8-0 Mets. Jackson will pull up into 2nd. It's been a doubles day for the Mets. Nimmo, 3 doubles. Jackson, 2 doubles. Add another one for Conforto, and here comes Jim Riggleman to make a visit to the mound, and another double switch for Riggleman. Tucker Barnhart coming out, and guess what? He'll use the same glove. So the same glove for 3 first basemen on this day. And a little bit of a...
They're bringing in Phillip Ervin to
on.
pitch.
No one's loosening in the bullpen right now.
This has been the year of the position player pitching. And we're going to see what Phillip Ervin's got going on. Now, the one complication Ervin may have is that he's got a white sleeve on his elbow, on his throwing arm. And, oh, he just took that baby off. Okay, that'll... So...
Now we're back. Ervin just took a couple of flips and said, let's go. He's facing Devin Mesoraco, with Jackson sitting out at second. Mesoraco bounces one down to third. Tricky hop, but taken care of by Suarez, and they'll get the out at first. Barnhart at first with a good backhand. So Phillip Ervin gets the Reds out of trouble here in the 8th. Last roundup for the Reds. He'll lead off as we go to the 9th. Jake Owen will be performing a live concert from the field this Saturday. Everyone with a ticket to the Reds game will have a chance to enjoy the show from one of country music's hottest acts. Purchase your tickets now at Reds.com. Should be a great weekend. Hope you come out to the ballpark. That's Saturday after the ball game. Well, Don Long's hitters have avoided the shutout bugaboo since May. In fact, they have not been shut out since May the 19th, 67 games. That right now is the longest active streak in Major League Baseball. And they'll have to try to score against Robert Gazelman, who'll take over here in the 9th inning. Last roundup for the Reds as Phillip Ervin ends the bottom of the 8th. So now the Reds have used 29 pitchers, including Cliff Pennington, who pitched on April the 12th against the Cardinals, and Alex Blandino, who pitched back in July against Cleveland. And add Phillip Ervin to the position players that have pitched for the Reds today. And here's Phillip. A single, a strikeout on the day. No runs, 5 hits and an error for the Reds. 8 runs, 8 hits and an error for the Mets. Popped up. Flores in fair territory has it. Irvin's retired, and there's one away. One inning for Jerry Blevins, and here's Gazelman who'll take over. Once the trade was consummated with Oakland for Familia, it became a open tryout for next year, Chris, to see who will be the closer on this ball club.
Well, he may be in that consideration, obviously, but I mean, he's only 24 years old. He was a starter for the most part last year, had 22 starts. But at 24 now, he's only, I mean, that's pretty young for a guy that's now pitching in his 84th Major League games. Had 29 starts overall.
Questions for Mickey Callaway as he looks towards 2019. They brought up some of their hard-throwing young right-handers. They have a shortage of left-handers, and they're all getting a chance to show what they can do and set up in closing roles. Awkward swing by Scooter. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Scooter today, single, struck out. While he was in there, DeGrom struck out 10. Blevins had 2 more, so 12 strikeouts on the afternoon. There's another bouncer to Flores. 2 quick outs here in the 9th inning, and that'll bring up Suarez. Hey, Eugenio had a hit in every game on this road trip for the Reds going into today. 2 strikeouts and a ground ball out today, so his Reds' longest hitting streak intact is in jeopardy. And the Reds trying to avoid the shutout. Could see a bolt here from the third baseman. They'll overshift to the left side against him. Paid attendance 24,287 after 21,000 yesterday. Braved an hour 40-minute rain delay here. Early start, noon start, and the Reds will head to the airport after today's ball game, head home, off day tomorrow, and then the Diamondbacks come to town. There's a base hit into left, so Suarez, all 9 games on the hit streak, reaches via a base hit, and that'll bring up Mason Williams. Even with the shift, Rosario couldn't get a glove on it.
Good for Suarez right there. Hit the ball very hard, and you know, in a game like this, when your team's getting blown out, you kind of resort to whatever makes you feel good. Hitting the ball hard in the center of the bat makes him feel good.
Williams walked, hit one right on the button to right that Nimmo picked off the top of the wall and bounced to third. That's going to be through on the right side. Suarez will stop at second. So Williams corks one into right for a base hit. 2 on, 2 out. And here comes the catcher, Kurt Casale. Well, the 2 injury questions heading into Friday. Joey Votto has gotten the last 2 days off, still nursing that sore knee. The hope is he'll be ready to go on Friday. You don't know about Preston Tucker. They took x-rays, Chris, showed no damage, but he was in a walking boot the last 2 days. You don't know if he'll be ready to go. They'll probably make a decision once they get home. It'll be good to get number 19 back in the lineup in his bat.
Joey shot in that dugout. He's talking to all the pitchers.
He's had a purpose the last couple of days.
I mean, the last guy's been sitting there's Phillip Ervin.
Now it'll go on the back of his card. He's a pitcher too. Just like you always thought you were a hitter. What did Robin Roberts tell you about your hitting?
Stick to pitching.
1 ball, 1 strike. Broken bat over second. They'll get the final out. Good play by Rosario to get the final out, and just like that, the Mets have wrapped up 2 out of 3 against the Reds. Jacob deGrom, as advertised today, 6 innings of 4-hit no-run baseball. Mets chimed in with 8 hits and 8 runs, aided by a boatload of walks from the Reds. And the end result, the Mets win at 8 runs, 8 hits and an error. The Reds no runs, 7 hits and 1 error. More to talk about from Citi Field after these messages.